Hello everyone, Kaoz here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. I've been playing on my hardcore a lot more recently, and thanks to our wonderful community, I've been learning more about the game in ways I didn't even think when playing on my unrestricted main. And like I've said before, with the game booming in popularity recently, I thought about sharing this newfound knowledge to other potential Iron enjoyers and even early or mid-game players who could benefit from all of these tips. Scapers, if you like these videos, consider subscribing with notifications on and dropping a like for the YouTube overlords. You can also join our Discord server with the link in the description to play with me and our amazing community. The only disclaimer I have for you today is that because I am joining very late to the Iron party, a lot of you could know about every one of these tips already, but I know at least one person will learn something new from this video. Even if you don't play an Iron type account and you are in the early stages of your progression, you can still follow any or all of these to set up your account for success when it comes to skilling or money making. I hope you guys enjoy the very first Iron-centric video on this channel after 4.5 years of weekly uploads, and with that being said, let's begin. Before we do anything, I would heavily consider unlocking some early transportation methods because walking everywhere is going to suck the joy out of most activities you do in the early game. When starting out, you don't really have to deviate too much from common areas like Lumbridge, Varrock, or Falador, but when we are talking places like Catherby, Ardy, or even Zaya or Valamor, it will take a lot longer getting to those places than actually doing what you want. This is something you want to do slowly but surely, and won't be able to do all of them as soon as you step foot in the mainland. Get yourself a chronicle and some pages from Diango in Draenor Village, and this will teleport you near the Champions Guild south of Varrock. This requires money, which is our next topic, but you want at least a few of them in case you need to go to one of the most iconic places in the game. Don't forget to use your home teleport every 30 minutes in case you need to go back to Lumbridge, Alcarid, or Draenor. Up next we are doing a long streak of tasks, but trust me, it is going to be well worth it for one of the best transportation methods in the entire game. Do the quests Restless Ghost and the Priest in Peril, both of which are prerequisites for a quest called Nature Spirit. You will also need a few combat levels as well as 18 crafting. You could level up to 31 crafting if you're already in the rhythm of it, and with 36 woodcutting we are doing a quest called Lost City. This is all you need to complete a quest called Fairy Tale Part 1, and when you finish it, you are going to start Fairy Tale Part 2 right away for early access to fairy rings. All that's left to get is 15 thieving to steal from ham members, and with a rusty sword you can complete the easy Ardy diary for the Ardy Cloak 1, for the best early game teleport to a fairy ring. After this, what I personally did on my low level hardcore was going to the Kaoz library in Zaya, and with a plugin of the same name, get as many books as you can to then hand them into the gnome and the man in the center of the ground floor. They will give you tomes of experience which you can use in magic, and level up without any runes. I did this until level 51 so I can teleport up to Ardy after Plague City, and it didn't really take too long because early levels go by really quickly. This last part may be a little overkill, especially if you don't mind running around the map, but the final thing I did before taking quests seriously was Guardians of the Rift until at least level 54. Doing the mini quest Enter the Abyss takes you from levels 1 to 9 rune crafting, and then the quest The Temple of the Eye will get you from 9 to 27. Completion of Lost City is what you need to start crafting cosmic runes for more experience, which we already mentioned, and at level 54, with completion of the Troll Stronghold quest, you can make law runes at Guardians of the Rift. This is a lot better than going to the altar in Entrana, and you won't have to buy them from any shop. For those of you who are still with me, all of this may not seem very efficient and even boring, but trust me, the thought of not having to worry about transportation thanks to fairy rings, law runes, and a decent magic level took a ton of stress off the early and the mid-game questing grind on the hardcore. I honestly cannot tell you how much I thank my past self for starting my account this way, and it is something I heavily recommend you look into. If you don't want to go through the whole Kaoz library or runecrafting ordeal, I would say at least the fairy ring should be your go-to for the early game. Okay, that was definitely a mouthful. After you unlock important transportation methods, the next thing to take care of is of course a little bit of starting cash. When playing the hardcore, I thought to myself that raw cash wouldn't really be an issue until I started training construction, for example, but oh boy, it turned out I needed money for a lot of activities. And this is where Iron players on my Discord came in heavily clutch. If you want to make money with low requirements or no requirements at all, I will show you a few methods for money making that might be a little contested or even dangerous, but will definitely get you out of a pinch if you need some cash. Nowadays, one of the important methods for money making on an early game Iron is picking up a drink called Eclipse Red in the second floor of the Hunter Guild. This requires the Children of the Sun quest to access Valamor, and once you make it to the guild, pick up as many wines as you can. and then deposit them on the bank nearby until you are ready to leave. You then need to go to Alderaan, accessible via the ship in the Sunset Coast. Alternatively, if you have already unlocked fairy rings, there's one of them on the island which you can get to with their fairy ring code CKQ. Go to the wine shop on the island, and each of the Eclipse Reds will sell for a static 700 EP, which means you don't even need to hop worlds to benefit from a lower stock. The second one is that if you have at least a level 34 crafting, which you should be close to if you did the quests we talked about before, you can go to the gem store also in Alderaan, buy uncut gems, cut them, and then sell them back for decent profit. The downside to this is that the stock is very low, so you'll be hopping around quite a lot. As you can probably tell, the only variable when talking about both of these methods is that you'll be competing with other players doing the same thing for early cash. And one particularly interesting thing I realized about gems is that store supplies are different depending on which account buys or sells the items here. I tried to sell uncut gems there on my main so my hardcore could buy them, but the stock didn't really change. And even one of our pals on Discord sold gems on his group Ironman there, and even then I did not see the stock change. Both of these are things you can do when the game sees a lower player count, but it's not going to be impossible to find an empty world. Another method I'll mention is for non-hardcore accounts, and an early game moneymaker I've recommended before is going to the Wilderness Lava Maze dungeon and grab steel plate bodies that spawn there to high alch them. When I've mentioned this method, I recommend doing it on a free-to-play world to have less chances to find people, and with an okay combat level, you could potentially outlast the free-to-play champions who try to kill you. The final method I'll mention is the Agility Pyramid. This has a humble requirement of level 30, but I would recommend you come here once you've unlocked the full Graceful, which will put you anywhere between 50 or 60. Anytime you reach the end, collect the pyramid at the top, which can be traded in with the NPC nearby for 10k each. I would honestly say that 300 or even 400k carried me through early game questing, and then I got into other moneymakers for more reliable profit, which we will talk about next. For now though, these methods will solve your early game problems at the beginning of your journey. We've already talked about questing, but I want to mention for one more topic because I would have loved knowing about this when I started the hardcore. You know how in my account progression videos or even my streams, I always talk about the optimal quest guide on the wiki, right? Well, call me dumb, but I didn't know that there was an optimal quest guide for irons. I'm looking at both the lists as I'm writing the script, and honestly, they don't really change too much. The biggest difference I can see is that a normal optimal quest guide asks you to use a lot of experience lamps on Slayer for some requirements, whereas the iron one puts pretty much all of them onto Herblore since it's the most annoying skill to level up before you get an efficient farming route going. The cool part about both of these is that money doesn't really play a big role. And whenever you might need cash for things like buying runes, some GP requirements for quests, or even early game construction levels, you're honestly good to go with a little bit of starting cash from the previous topics. This is even better because you have alternative ways of doing these things. For example, I got my gathering skills to 50 and then I started doing the Wintertodt a little more seriously, which we will mention again soon, and the amount of supplies you get from this is just insane. But I'm getting a little sidetracked. I would honestly say that if you make a new Iron account, you can do a ton of these quests back to back to back up until about a third of the list. And then you'll actually have to do a little bit of skilling on the side for some requirements that have you making a few items yourself instead of buying them on the Grand Exchange. So again, Google OSRS Wiki Optimal Quest Guide for Irons, and it will take you by the hand towards your questscape. And speaking of supplies, let's now talk about two activities which are absolutely crucial on an Iron account. I won't talk too much about the Wintertodt because it's been something important for Iron since like forever, but I will quickly mention a few important changes. Like I said before, you might want to get your gathering and the production skills in the 40s or 50s because rewards from the activity actually scale based off of your levels. It is not impossible to get higher tier items like Adamant or Runite ore at level 1 mining, but chances of this happening will be way lower. For the longest time, the meta for an early game Iron was to get 50 fire making and spam Wintertodt until level 99 to get a ton of supplies. Because of the scaling system though, I would heavily recommend the training a little bit before fully committing, so you don't waste the rolls on potentially better items. Remember that thanks to a relatively recent update, you now have a warmth meter in Wintertodt, and you can make healing potions there which remove the need for you to bring your own food. Aside from this, you can now get rewards from the cart next to the bank instead of getting supply crates. The other thing I would say is now crucial for Irons is engaging in Hunter Rumours for as long as you can handle. In the past, the Hunter skill was just something you would need to get Chinchompas and level ranging quickly, but thanks to the Hunter Guild, the rewards coming from it, Hunter will now be an important part of any Iron journey. Available at level 46 Hunter after completion of Children of the Sun, you can start getting Hunter Rumours from the NPCs in the burrow and to get yourself some loot sacks. These contain a bunch of goodies, some of which we will talk about later, and is now a great source of supplies which work similarly to rewards in Wintertodt. So before you fully commit to the Hunter grind, remember to level up gathering and production skills just a little bit. Now, I'm not just telling you to do Hunter for the rewards. To some of you, one of the main concerns of playing an Iron account are potions, specifically Prayer, right? Well, we have a new creature in the game called Moonlight Moth available at level 75, and if you combine it with a raw wild Kevit, you get an item called Moonlight Moth Mix. This has now become a crucial item for Irons, since it's basically free prayer potions, healing 22 points per dose, and you get 2 of these per item. I know that leveling to 75 Hunter may sound like a drag, but just as I'm typing this video, I kinda got the urge to level up some Hunter to hopefully get myself some of these, because my prayer potion stack is getting kinda low. Both the Wintertodt and Hunter Rumours will be an insane way to get supplies you wouldn't really get otherwise if you train firemaking and Hunter traditionally, so doing this has always been, and is now a must for any Iron journey. Next week's video will be an updated 1 to 99 farming guide, and I'll give you a little sneak peek of what that video is with our next topic, which is all about early farming. As an unrestricted account, this is mostly for requirements and money making, but for Irons, this skill is mandatory. I've had a lot of people ask me how to start farming, and I will tell you what I did on my hardcore. You can get early level seeds at the Drainer Village, but I would also recommend the leveling up thieving just a little bit for us to pickpocket master farmers. You can also get them from a few low-level monsters, and we are focusing specifically on potato, onion, cabbage, tomato, and the sweet corn for allotment, rosemary, nasturtium, woad, and limport for flowers, and guam, marentil, terramin, and the harrowlander for herbs. Full patches you can visit without any major quest unlocks are the ones south of Alador, Mauritania, Catherby, and the Ardi. For Hosidius, I recommend level 25 construction to move your house there, otherwise you'll need to use the Tide Farm minigame teleport. Use the best seed on every patch, and then do something else for an hour to repeat the cycle. This is what I did on my hardcore until level 34 farming, after which I went to the Tide Farm until level 45. This unlocks the first tier of the Farming Guild, and by doing farming contracts you can get seed packs, which are a much more reliable source of seeds. You can then use a seed vault in there to save some bank space, and when your farming level is higher, you can start planting more important seeds like Raynar, Irit, or Quarms for important potions for Slayer. But again, a lot more of information on early game farming on our next video. This next one basically solved my mid-game money problems, and it took care of 2 skills at the same time. When playing an Iron, other than me dreading doing herb runs for potions, I was tormenting myself wondering how I was going to level up smithing for Song of the Elves. Power mine iron ore and then camp coal for steel plate bodies? Well, if I did that, I think I would have restarted my account because of something I was reminded of. The Giant's Foundry is something I literally only ever did on my main account for my guide, but I can confidently say that this would be my preferred way of getting smithing to 99, not only because of the experience, but also the amount of money you get. So when working on videos, recording something on my main account, or even for my classes, I had my hardcore at the Motherlode mine from levels 52 all the way to 80. When I was told how much money you can make at a Giant's Foundry and tested it for a while, I genuinely could not believe it. The next step was doing a quest called the Family Crest for the Goldsmith Gauntlets, smelt the gold bars at any furnace until level 60, and then going to the Blast Furnace to smelt all of my resources there. If you remember, you need half the amount of coal you normally need, so this was a game changer. I then did steel and the mithril alloys from 50 to 70, and from there on out I used all my adamant and the mithril bars for alloys, which grant about 15,000 experience per sword and a ridiculous 30,000 GP per commission. I still have a lot of resources waiting to be used, but if you're worried about smithing, I heavily recommend following this path. This next one is not too long, and combined with the Giant's Foundry, will solve your early game money problems for anything you might potentially need. You've heard me talk about wealthy citizen pickpocketing in Valimor way too many times, and it makes a final return here. If you remember my 99 thieving guide from a few weeks ago, I said that I got from level 50 to 78 thieving without even realizing. And if you're doing something else, this activity on the side is absolutely phenomenal. My cash stack is now up to 3 million GP or something like that, and will single-handedly solve the construction problem for me. All you need is one click every minute or so, and all that experience and GP will add up without you realizing. The only thing that's kinda mandatory for this is the Rogue's outfit for double pickpocketing loot, and not only does this benefit the GP, you will get double the house keys for our next activity, which is even better for experience per hour if you can pay just a little more attention. When you're able to play somewhat more actively, stealing from houses is also really good experience and the GP per hour. Just remember that you don't 100% need the Rogue's outfit here because you're not pickpocketing, and every time you see an arrow above one of the spots will give you additional thieving experience which scales based off your level. All that's left to do is to trade in your stolen valuables with Oriana next to a bank in Civitas and get even more GP for your efforts. I really cannot suggest this method enough, and thieving will be super useful later for quest requirements or pickpocketing from master farmers. Every single iron I have ever talked to tells me that your kingdom of Miscellania management is absolutely crucial. After completion of the quest The Throne of Miscellania, you have your own kingdom to manage, as your loyal subjects gather supplies for you. This is further amplified after the quest The Royal Trouble, since you will get more people to gather supplies for you. At first it sounded kinda troublesome because I was told that you need up to 50 or 75k GP per day to upkeep the influx of items, and with my cash stack being like 300k, this just wasn't very feasible for me. But after all the money making we have talked about, and able to make over 300k GP per day without paying attention, it is not as intimidating as it once was. Everyone tells me that herbs should be the #1 priority, and then the next best thing to gather are teak and mahogany logs for construction. Or even mahogany if you want more experience from those planks, but having both is a good combination for budget training, especially with mahogany homes. I would say that fishing isn't really needed because you have activities like temporals and rock around ones, coal isn't really needed because of the sheer amount you get from the mother lode mine, and picking flax or seeds would just be trouble. When done, simply leave a good chunk of GP and let your town do the work for you. I personally only check it every once a week, and despite the resources not being amazing, it's something you are getting passively without you going out of your way for it. The second to last tip is for diaries. For unrestricted account, the achievement diary system may have a few useful passive effects you can use for money making, experience gains, or just to make certain activities a little better or faster. As an iron account though, you need to use everything at your disposal to make the most out of your playtime. This is where diaries come into play. I am not going to talk about every single diary reward I recommend as an iron because that would just be paraphrasing one of my previous videos. But some of the best diary rewards that come to mind for this type of account are the following. Arty Cloak for a good teleport near a fairy ring, making unfinished potions in Narda out of noted vials of water and the clean herbs, more yield from the patch in Catharby, the Rada's Blessing from Karen Diaries, Varrock Armor for more resources and experience more mining, and the Explorer's Ring for free alchemy, stamina recovery, and the teleport to the Falador farm, just to mention a few. As of the time of making this video, I have all of the easy and the medium diaries on my hardcore, except for the wilderness one of course. And I have learned quite a lot when it comes to making the best out of these rewards to make some things slightly more efficient. The final tip on the list is to save your bank from potential clutter. Over the years, we have gotten countless additions to the game that make it so much easier to save your bank a ton of inventory spaces, and here we have a few of them. As we saw in my POH video, the custom room in your house has an obscene amount of items you can store here without necessarily having them in your bank if you don't need them readily available. You can store quest items, capes, skilling outfits, and even armor for every combat style, as well as clue scrolls. You also have stash units which you can build next to clue locations to avoid having them in your bank, but these are also nearly mandatory for any type of account. As long as you have the construction level, filling up these will be super fun. More recently, the Mastering Mixology minigame added potion storage, which is basically having all your potions saved up somewhere else in your bank without needing the space for it. As an unrestricted main, this has never been an issue, but when I have enough herbs to play Mastering Mixology on my hardcore, potion storage will be the very first thing I unlock. These are just a few of the things you can utilize to declutter your bank, and as any iron account knows, you definitely need a lot of space, especially when you get into late and the end game of your account. So Ironmen and Iron Women of all ages, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and you learned something useful. If you did, tell me your #1 tip for any iron account and why, and if you include the term RSN and your username in your comment, you'll be entered in our weekly bond giveaway, for which we will pick a winner on Friday's stream. I want to give a hardcore thank you, pun intended, to all the people you see on this list for supporting the project I love so much, which helps me support my family with a lot of tacos and beans. If you like what I do here, click the join button below to see all the cool perks and benefits you can get in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord for a monthly fee. In the next one, we will go over a remastered 1 to 99 farming guide, since it could use a little update thanks to so many things added for the farming skill. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and I will see you then. Peace.